So I've gotten asked, what do I think about the child credit cards? Oh, that just never sat right with me. Now, I will tell you, I did bring them up before and start looking at them on my screen, and here's my thoughts on why we never did this. But again, I did look at them. I thought about it. For one, I want you to think about how easy it is for you to swipe your card on something. It doesn't feel like you're spending money, right? Especially with the tap cards, you just go up and boom, it's paid for. It doesn't ever feel like you spent money. So we're talking about a group of people who haven't really had a lot of experience with money. To them, it's just numbers. And there should be a feeling when you spend money. Why? Because it should hurt a little when the money goes away. If it doesn't, you have no warnings for overspending. I don't mean hurt like it shouldn't be painful. You shouldn't be like, there's my dollar for my bread. It shouldn't be like that. But there should be an awareness. There should be something going off in your head that, okay, I've spent maybe enough for today, or something as you're teaching them about using cards. You should be teaching them about budgeting. They should be learning more skills than just a card. And what I felt when I looked up the cards is the main thing that they were pushing was convenience. They tried to wrap it up in security because this is just your child's card, and you put money on it and only they know the PIN and whatever, no more lost lunch money or whatever. But it skips a step that should be in their heads as they learn about money and spending their own money. It's just a number. You ask them as soon as they walk away from their math homework, algebra or whatever, ask them if they remember any of the problems. Chances are going to be no, because it's just numbers. There's nothing to make it stick. They might remember formulas. They might remember, what they learned or something. Not a high chance with that if, if they're not big math lovers. But even if they like math, to remember like one of the specific problems, one of the specific numbers, the chances are pretty low. So as they're going about their day and they just have this card and it has this money in it, now you can tell them you have to be responsible with this, you have to keep track of it, and they might. I'm not saying it's going to fail. I'm saying in my mind, when I looked at it, it skipped a step. So my kids got cash. They got the cash that they earned, or if it was like a school thing. Our school had the lunch accounts, and I put money into the lunch account, and they could use that to get their lunch. They didn't have to carry in their lunch money. In fact, I'm pretty sure the school did allow it cash. I don't remember. Anyway, it was easier for me to just once a week or once a month or whatever put the money in the lunch accounts, and off they went. There was a time they took cash for lunch, and I think that was more elementary school. And then once they got older and there were the options and the whatever, it was much harder to anticipate what they would need and what the costs were, the more options they had to get their lunch. So we did do that. We did do the lunch account where they were allowed to get lunch. But I also looked at that and we talked about that because, again, the numbers had no meaning. So, I noticed some of my kids were spending a lot more out of their lunch accounts. And one of them, bought lunch for a kid that didn't have one. It's like, okay, you can do that. That is nice. But if the kid always doesn't bring a lunch, then there's another problem we need to address. We're not just going to fund this. Are they purposely not doing it because then you're buying them lunch? Because I did have that happen. So there were other things. But as far as the card went, I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Besides that, there were fees on top of it. And really, what does my child need to buy outside of me that would be important for? There's only one of my children so far that we had a situation like that, and it's because they graduated early. So they were not old enough to get their own bank account because you have to be 18, but they were driving and they were getting a paycheck from their job. So that one was a little more difficult. I actually had another account. I have a bank account at 3 different banks. So the one that I used the least, we set up for their paycheck to go into. They got to use that debit card. But it was more, I only kept their money in it. I think I had like $50 in there of my own. They put the app on their phone. So really it was them having a bank account and a debit card a little bit earlier than they would have because they were in that more adult situation. But at 15, even at 16, when they have their own cars, it is a pain to go inside to pay for your gas. I get it. I like paying at the pump. I don't like going in. If I pull up to a pump and I put my card in and it says it won't take the card and you have to go see the cashier, I'll go to a different pump before I walk inside. I don't know why. People, I mean, people can be scary, but not usually at a gas station. But I don't know. We're used to that now, right? But at 16, they can walk inside. They can take their cash inside. They can do that. They can see how it feels to take money. Okay, that won't get you to take a guess. To take their money in and hand it over. And there's just something that happens in your brain when it's something that you worked for and you are holding on to it and it has value and this was your time and this was your effort and you're handing it over. And you feel that a lot more than you do if you just do that with a card. It's just true. Besides that, and a lot of the children's cards or teenager cards or whatever, they are debit cards, like they're parent funded. But we also are Dave Ramsey followers. We went through Financial Peace years ago. I've taught it a few times. So debt is not something that we are in favor of at all. And although the kids do know the difference between a debit card and a credit card, I just didn't think we needed to rush into a piece of plastic to depend on for money. And again, I know that those weren't credit cards for the teenagers. I know that they were debit cards. They still had transaction fees. They still had, other things that I just didn't think we needed to rush into that, especially without that full formulated concept of money. So if you are on the fence about it, and even if your kid if you've given them cash and they've lost it, you know what? When I was a kid, my mom gave me cash and I lost it. So I didn't eat, or I borrowed food from somebody else. Not borrowed, but I mean, when you're a teenager, you're like, hey, can I have some of those chips? Yeah, okay. I mean, it happens. It's a part of life. So your child's not going to starve if you give them money to get dinner after a game and they lose it. They're not going to starve. Somebody else might let them have some of their food, or they can wait till they get home to eat. And you can pack them snacks even, so like, here's, $10 for dinner after the game, but I'm going to put in a granola bar in your backpack. Okay, so then maybe they lose the $10. They put it in their shoe or something and it falls out. They still have the granola bar. It's painted like a kid needs this card. Sometimes, not all the times. I've seen some of the advertisements where it makes it sound like this is so important and you're a bad parent if you don't have it. You're not. You're just not. So you do what you think is right. This is how I felt about it. And again, I did look into it. I did see the convenience, but it just seemed like one of those things where the convenience of now did not outweigh the life lesson of kind of struggling through this a little bit, and to get that understanding and to see how it feels sometimes when you don't have the cash, because that is a situation most people will be in at some point in their lives. And if they can feel that now over a missed cheeseburger versus 10 years from now over a missed house payment, I would rather have that lesson learned now. Hopefully they never have to do the missed house payment, but you know what I mean? If that triggers something that I need to be more responsible, that's going to get their attention more than a lecture about them not watching the balance on their card. Because then it's just another thing mom and dad are saying to them. It's another lecture. Maybe they lost their phone over it, or maybe something. It's a consequence then that's outside. It's nothing that they felt and had to deal with themselves, except maybe, the lost phone. That's not even tied directly to the money. So I feel like I'm babbling now, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Again, do what you think is right. There's nothing inherently evil about those cards. We just decided that wasn't what we were going to do.